bad, huh?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most embarrassing box office duds that killed any hope of continuing their franchise.
Just doesn't seem right.
Number 30, Speed Racer. Based on a beloved anime and helmed by the lauded directors of The Matrix, you'd think this wannabe franchise would go all the way past the finish line.
I don't know if I can watch this.
It's too bad then that it stalled out on its very first leg. While Speed Racer's eclectic visuals have earned it a rabid cult following over the years, that same quirky tone made it a tough sell for casual moviegoers. This movie couldn't even recoup its own budget at the box office, let alone deliver any profits.
You poor naive chump.
Despite ideas for a follow-up already revving up, the returns were so bad, it's unlikely we'll ever see this version of Speed on the big screen again. Number 29, Solo, a Star Wars story. When Disney sought to make a film series about everyone's favorite space cowboy, they made Alden Ehrenreich sign on the dotted line for a whole trilogy.
What's your name, son?
Han.
What? Who are your people?
I don't have people. I'm alone.
Solo.
But therein also lies the problem. No one wanted a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford, and audiences said as much with their wallets. The depressing box office ensured Solo would be Han's one and only big screen adventure. The impact went way beyond this one film though. No, Solo's underperformance had repercussions all across the galaxy far, far away, with many reporting that it scared the Mouse House away from producing any more theatrical Star Wars spin-offs.
I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But I accept it.
So if you're ever wondering where those big budget tentpoles went, blame Solo. Number 28, Mortal Engines. A buzzy young adult series, a steampunk aesthetic, and a cushy December release date seem like a foolproof formula for a new industry juggernaut.
Very, very nice. I've dug up a few of these in my time, but none as good as this.
Unfortunately, both fans and reviewers disagreed. Lambasted by toxic word of mouth, Mortal Engines failed to garner much traction during the busy holiday frame, and it has the poor profits to prove it. Or it would if it had any profits at all. The movie is often cited as one of the biggest box office bombs of all time, losing its studio around $175 million.
You failed.
Given the wallet-burning results, you can imagine why distributor Universal Pictures wasn't very eager to adapt the remaining 3 books. Number 27, Sahara. Even if this disaster flick had been a smashing success, which for the record it most definitely was not, prospects for a sequel still would have been as barren as an actual desert.
Ava. Ava. We'll get through, huh?
Sahara's fate as a franchise was actually decided in a courtroom, where the original book's author tried suing the film's producer. There's a laundry list of reasons why, but most of them boil down to the movie's extremely bumpy path to theaters. It wasn't even worth it either. The adaptation got a total yawn from audiences.
Is that all?
So considering there's no money in the brand and a decade-spanning lawsuit to smooth over, it's no wonder everyone abandoned Sahara 2. Number 26, Showgirls. There's an old saying in Hollywood, sex sells. Sadly, Showgirls is the exception. While there were tons of headlines about the film's explicit content, it didn't translate to ticket sales.
I'm sorry!
I'm sorry. Jesus, Nomi.
You can probably blame the bad reviews for that one. Modern critics have come back around to give Showgirls its due, but they came too late to rescue the in-development sequel. Well, technically we did get Showgirls 2. However, it didn't star Elizabeth Berkley and was released primarily through film festivals, DVD, and video on demand. If Showgirls had hit theaters today, we may have actually gotten the proper sequel it always deserved.
Then what are you doing here?
I'm watching you be a prick.
Well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Number 25, I Am Number 4. Despite its name, I Am Number 4 couldn't even make it past movie number 1. Keep in mind, this was also at a time when every studio in town was looking for the next young adult craze.
You alright?
Yeah.
Anyone else see what happened?
DreamWorks thought they'd struck gold with this book series, so much so they fast-tracked development on a sequel before I Am Number 4 even hit theaters. But when the mediocre film delivered even more mediocre results, the franchise hopeful quietly turned into a disappointing one-off instead.
I'm sorry.
I'm not. I mean, I was. But, I don't know. I kind of look at it like a total gift.
All in all, there's 7 long books in the series. However, to this day, there's still only one movie. That alone should tell you everything you need to know. Number 24. Lemony Snickets, A Series of Unfortunate Events. For the record, casting Jim Carrey as the maniacally inept Count Olaf was a stroke of genius.
I will raise these orphans as if they were actually wanted.
It's tragic then that it didn't end up moving the needle all that much. Despite the popular source material, A Series of Unfortunate Events suffered from soft audience turnout. Distributor Paramount Pictures wanted to adapt the other 10 books into feature films, but the lower than expected profits slowed down development, and by the time everyone was on board, the child actors were too old to reprise their roles anyway.
It doesn't matter. This
Doesn't matter! Are you checking me, girl?
This turned out to be a series of unfortunate events indeed, just not in the way that helped anyone's pocketbook. Number 23. The Dark Tower. Stephen King may be a household name on bookshelves, but his forays to the big screen have had some very mixed results. Looking at you, The Dark Tower.
Was it about the tower? The war?
Yes.
It's even more embarrassing when you realize it took 10 years of development for this movie to finally see the light of day. When it did, audiences outright rejected the final project, disappointed in the way it crammed King's epic story into a 2-hour snore fest. Reviews were bad, profits were worse, and any thoughts of adapting the rest of the series were simply non-existent.
One last time around the wheel, old friend.
No one was touching this stinker with a 10-foot pole, and honestly, that's for the best. Number 22. Independence Day, Resurgence. Whoever thought it was a good idea to revive this franchise without Will Smith needs a major wake-up call.
Hey, come on. Let's be professional.
His star power almost single-handedly catapulted the original to popcorn entertainment staple. So when Independence Day came back 20 years later without him, all it got was some major diminishing returns. 20th Century Fox hoped the franchise name alone would drive interest for a third film, but considering Resurgence finished its run as a serious financial disappointment, it's clear they shouldn't have even made it in the first place.
You all have to pick up the pieces once it's over. This is my part.
So don't expect to see these aliens return for a third time. At least, not without Will Smith. Number 21. The Mummy. It takes a special kind of box office poison to ruin a film, a franchise, and a whole universe in one fell swoop. 2017's The Mummy was just that bad.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Headlined by Tom Cruise, the film underwent rigorous production delays in order to kickstart a whole cinematic universe of monster flicks. Dracula, The Invisible Man, Frankenstein's monster, it was all riding on the groundwork laid by The Mummy. But then came the box office tallies. Let's just say the numbers were so crummy, this mummy was promptly put back in its tomb alongside any hope for future crossovers. Maybe this time they'll let it rest for good.
And that is a mistake we cannot afford to repeat.
Number 20. The Lone Ranger.
Hold on, Kimosabe. Tonto?
Disney's The Lone Ranger is a modern adaptation of the classic radio series and 50s television show. However, it seems as if the Ranger and Tonto aren't quite the superstars they were 60 years ago. The film was lambasted for its bloated length and over-reliance on action, while also being accused of whitewashing by casting Johnny Depp as a Native American.
What you crying, boy?
Indian.
The film cost roughly $400 million to produce and market, but it ended up only making $260 million at the worldwide box office. Stars Armie Hammer and Ruth Wilson were signed to do at least 3 movies, but these plans fell off a horse upon the Lone Ranger's abysmal performance.
Something very wrong with that horse.
Number 19. Conan the Barbarian.
No man shall live in chains.
Did you know that they made another Conan movie in 2011? Neither did most people. Despite the movie featuring a few respectable actors, including Jason Momoa and Ron Perlman, it was severely criticized for basically every aspect of its filmmaking, and for relying too heavily on its 3D effects. The film ended up grossing a meager $48 million on a $90 million budget. There were plans to follow up the remake's story, but it was soon announced that they would be making a sequel to the original 1982 film instead. However, these plans eventually fell through too, meaning the 2011 movie likely ended Conan's appearances on the silver screen.
I live, I love, I slay, and I am content.
Number 18, Aragon.
Sorry, that's all there is.
It's probably best that there were no more films, because we don't know if we could sit through another one. Aragon was considered one of the worst movies of 2006 due to its atrocious writing and derivative storyline.
What did you just do?
I started a fire.
Despite the movie's roasting by critics, it admittedly didn't do terribly at the box office, as it grossed a rather respectable $250 million on a $100 million budget. However, this was deemed a disappointment, and the sequels, which were set to film back-to-back Lord of the Rings style, were cancelled. Fans of Christopher Paolini's Inheritance cycle will just have to wait for a more respectable film adaptation, because Aragon wasn't it.
Are you ready to try again, Dragon Rider?
Number 17, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
But there is no way that I am fighting.
If there's one movie audiences were not asking for, it was yet another King Arthur movie, this time directed by Guy Ritchie and starring Charlie Hunnam. Don't get us wrong, we love those guys, but we don't think a fantastical King Arthur film was a good fit for their talents, and neither did audiences.
Why have enemies when you can have friends?
The movie grossed only $148 million on a Marvel-esque $175 million budget, effectively making it one of the biggest bombs of the year. Legend of the Sword was meant to serve as the first entry in a six film series, but after losing Warner Brothers $150 million, its sequels were swiftly and understandably given the axe, or sword in this case.
I feel a joke coming on here.
Number 16, Planet of the Apes.
You damn dirty human!
Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes had one thing going for it: Rick Baker's incredible makeup effects. Aside from that, the movie was a total wash, as it was a confusing mess with a twist ending that tarnished the iconic nature of the original.
Can't we all just get along?
While the movie was a financial success, Fox decided to scrap its plans for a sequel, and Tim Burton stated that he'd, quote, rather jump out a window than do another Apes movie. However, this was no great loss. Fox decided to reboot the series instead, resulting in 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and arguably one of the greatest movie trilogies of all time.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape!
Number 15, Jumper.
Just jump all over the place, jump, 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 jump. And nothing's gonna happen?
Jumper was another relatively successful movie whose sequels were cancelled. Jumper starred many notable actors, including Hayden Christensen, Michael Rooker, and Samuel L. Jackson, but it received horrible reviews due to its lack of coherence and awful special effects. However, the movie did gross over $200 million on an $85 million budget, but while producer Lucas Foster hoped to turn the movie into a trilogy, these plans have yet to come to fruition. A spin-off, titled Impulse, premiered on YouTube Red in June 2018. So, you know, that's something.
No one is going to believe you.
Number 14, Godzilla. Godzilla is one of the greatest monsters to ever grace movie screens. It deserved better than this abomination. Godzilla was set to be the movie of the summer, as it was made for a massive $130 million. And while it made a very respectable $379 million at the box office, it was viciously attacked by critics for being nothing more than a dumb disaster flick.
What do we do? Running would be a good idea.
There were plans to produce a trilogy based around Godzilla and similar monsters, but plans fell through when they failed to generate interest among moviegoers and theater owners. The sequels were scrapped, and Godzilla was rebooted over 15 years later.
Let them fight.
Number 13, Ghostbusters.
Let's light him up.
The all-female reboot of Ghostbusters was immediately met with an unfair amount of disdain. Its trailer was heavily downvoted on YouTube, and many people personally attacked the filmmakers and cast over social media. Regardless of the reasons for the vitriol, the movie ended up grossing $229 million on a $144 million budget. Because of the film's huge marketing budget, the studio needed $300 million just to break even.
Booyah. Emphasis on the boo.
Well, I would love to see that. I really would.
Sony head Rory Brewer hoped that the movie would spawn a franchise, and it was reported that the cast had signed on for 2 more movies. However, director Paul Feig later confirmed that they were canceling the sequels due to the film's mediocre reception.
Okay, this is not good.
Number 12, the Divergent series, Allegiant.
What if there's nothing else out there?
Young adult movies are big business. Ever since Harry Potter dominated the world throughout the 2000s, producers the world over have been trying to replicate its success. The Divergent series did not do that, despite a respectable lead performance from Shailene Woodley. Allegiant was the 3rd movie in the series, but it only grossed a disappointing $179 million at the worldwide box office.
You saved a city. Help me save the world.
Due to the film's underperformance, plans for the second part of the movie fell through, and it was announced that the story would continue as a television film and/or TV series without Shailene Woodley. Talk about 2 serious blows.
Okay.
We're leaving.
What?
Right now.
What? I can't.
Number 11, Battlefield Earth.
While you were still learning how to spell your name, I was being trained to conquer galaxies.
Battlefield Earth is infamous for being one of the worst movies of all time, filled with bad acting and curiously angled shots. The movie also has its roots in Scientology. Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard, wrote the novel on which the movie is based, and famous Scientologist John Travolta hoped that the novel would be adapted in 2 parts. Those hopes were soon dashed post-release.
Your powers of observation are simply startling.
The movie dramatically fell off the box office charts after its opening weekend, eventually grossing just shy of $30 million on a $73 million budget. The commercial failure, coupled with the eventual bankruptcy of production company Franchise Pictures, meant that we never got to see the conclusion of Hubbard's story on screen.
I've wasted my time, haven't I?
Number 10, The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I'm following you now. I'm just gonna follow you everywhere.
There wasn't exactly a strong demand for a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise only 5 years after Spider-Man 3, and unfortunately, the mediocre quality of these films didn't do much to win over audiences. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 received a mixed reception, and eventually grossed a disappointing, relative to the property, $709 million.
I don't want your money.
Come on, everybody wants my money!
While this iteration of the Spider-Man series was meant to spawn an entire universe, including more Spider-Man films and Sinister Six, Venom, and Black Cat movies, these plans were indefinitely delayed after the performance of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sony then reached a deal with Marvel to bring Spider-Man to the MCU, effectively canceling the Amazing Spider-Man franchise in the process. Number 9, Batman and Robin.
Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
Like Battlefield Earth, Batman and Robin is known for being one of the worst movies of all time. And like Battlefield Earth, there were high hopes that it would pave the way for future installments.
Let's kick some ice.
Warner Brothers had commissioned a sequel based solely on the dailies of Batman and Robin. It was to be called Batman Unchained and planned to feature Scarecrow as the main antagonist, with George Clooney reprising his role as the Caped Crusader. However, Clooney decided that he was done with the cowl after the harsh reception of Batman and Robin, and the sequel was cancelled. Warner Brothers then hired Christopher Nolan to completely reboot the franchise, resulting in Batman Begins.
Where are you?
Number 8, Fantastic Four.
You guys sure you're in the best shape to be doing this?
Fox had big plans for their rebooted Fantastic Four. A sequel was announced before Fantastic Four even began filming, with a planned release date of July 14th, 2017. However, the movie was a massive critical and commercial bomb, earning only $168 million at the worldwide box office and a 9% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The future of the franchise was immediately thrown into question, although it wasn't looking very good for the Marvel's first family.
It's fantastic.
Say that again?
In December 2017, Disney announced that it was purchasing Fox's TV and film assets, a move that would place the future of the Fantastic Four in the hands of Marvel Studios. We saw how well it worked for Spider-Man, so fingers crossed.
It's clobbering time!
Number 7. Terminator Genesis.
You are nothing but a relic from a deleted timeline.
There once was a time when the Terminator series was the pinnacle of action cinema. Nowadays, we get the likes of Terminator Genesis, which many people found to be a convoluted, watered-down mess. The film earned only $89 million at the domestic box office, which was considered a massive disappointment for the iconic franchise.
Why hold on to someone when you know you must let them go?
Worse yet, Genesis was set to be the first movie of a new trilogy, but these plans were canceled after the movie's numbers came in. It was then announced that James Cameron would be returning to the series and that the next film would serve as a reboot and continue the story of Terminator 2. Hasta la vista, Genesis.
Are you kidding me?
Number 6. The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones.
I'm a werewolf, not the golden retriever.
Hollywood desperately wants to find the next Harry Potter. While some young adult adaptations like The Hunger Games and Twilight have found success, many others have failed, but few as spectacularly as The Mortal Instruments. City of Bones opened poorly and never recovered, earning only $90 million on a $60 million budget.
Wait, you can see this guy?
Of course she can, she's a witch.
Plans for a sequel, City of Ashes, were made before the release of City of Bones, but due to the disappointing box office performance, these plans were put on hold. It was eventually announced that the sequel was cancelled and that The Mortal Instruments would continue as a television series.
I've no idea what you're talking about.
Number 5. Superman Returns.
Who are you?
I'm Clark Kent.
Superman Returns served as a reboot/sequel of the first 2 Superman movies, and ignored the 3rd and 4th entries, which, let's be honest, was for the best.
Stop! Don't do it! The people!
Unfortunately, while many people considered it a decent movie, it was a disappointment at the box office, earning only $391 million against a $200+ million budget.
You wrote that the world doesn't need a savior. But every day I hear people crying for one.
A sequel was planned and set to star Brainiac and Bizarro as villains, with much of the cast reprising their roles, but it was scrapped after the underperformance of Superman Returns. A reboot was planned instead, and Zack Snyder's Man of Steel was released 7 years later. Number 4. The Golden Compass.
If you value your lives, come no further.
Warner Brothers was really swinging for the fences with The Golden Compass, but hey, like we said, you gotta find the next Harry Potter. It was made on a $180 million budget and starred various A-listers, including Nicole Kidman, Ian McKellen, and Daniel Craig. However, fans of the novel were incensed that the adaptation diluted the story's anti-religious themes, and significant studio interference negatively impacted the finished product. The movie received mediocre reviews and grossed only $70 million in the domestic market.
Is that all?
Due to the movie's underperformance and alleged pressure from the Catholic Church, New Line canceled the remaining 2 entries of the series, leaving his Dark Materials fans without a satisfying conclusion to the on-screen story.
Maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Number 3. The Last Airbender.
I don't know how to bend the other elements.
We didn't really have high hopes for M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender, but it turned out to be even worse than we imagined. Not only did the movie generate a measly 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, it was heavily criticized for whitewashing many of its Asian characters. Despite the bile spat at the movie from both critics and fans, it managed to generate a respectable $319 million at the box office. While Shyamalan had planned to make a sequel featuring Azula as the villain, these plans never came to fruition. However, Shyamalan has expressed interest in making more Airbender movies at a future date, should the opportunity arise. Let's hope he's just trolling.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Number 2. John Carter.
That don't look like a fair fight.
Suffice it to say that Disney had big plans for the John Carter name. They allegedly put upwards of $350 million into the movie, including marketing costs, and the filmmakers reported that they were planning to make the series into a trilogy.
Is that your expert view?
The producers even began work on the second movie, The Gods of Mars, before John Carter was released to theaters. However, the film only made $284 million, and plans for the remaining 2 movies were quickly canceled, while director Andrew Stanton returned to the world of 3D animated films, directing Finding Dory instead. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Green Lantern.
Beware my power. Green Lantern's life.
Of all the superhero bombs, Green Lantern was the most spectacular. The film was yet another swing and a miss for DC, as it earned a 26% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and only grossed $220 million on a massive $200 million budget. When you consider that the movie needed to make $500 million to be considered a financial success, as speculated by The Hollywood Reporter, it's clear that Green Lantern was a massive failure.
Well, that's good advice.
The studio's plans for an extended Green Lantern series were immediately scrapped, making its end credit teaser more than a little embarrassing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I disappoint you?
Did any of these movies deserve a sequel? Fight for your favorites in the comments below.
You know, I'm actually trying to pay you a compliment, but it's not going so well.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.